that was Heath Hospital. The conversion took the form of thin sheets of this or that, being pinned, bolted, or even nailed across the superfluous niches and fake embrasures which had given the neo-Gothic building what little distinction it possessed. Advancing columns had been boxed in, while flying buttresses were brought down in a welter of chipboard. Much paint had been shed, and yet all that had been achieved was to incubate a disorientating fever in this already sick establishment. It was now impossible to tell the floor from the ceiling, or one wall from the others. The gleaming blue tabletops looked like oversized strip lights, while the wan strip lighting appeared to be the tops of upside-down tables fixed to the roof. The food was dished up by a crew of Samoans, their yellow faces looming out of the smelly steam like full moons peeking through scudding clouds. David Elmley worked near to St Mungo's in Cleveland Street. He'd occupied his small, neat office for 20 years. Together with his partner, he designed architectural ironmongery, latches, railings, letterboxes. Elmley himself specialized in hinges, the demand for which had been resolutely consistent since he left college in the early 1980s. Were he to have had even a weak sense of humour, doubtless the kind of thing Elmley would have said about his calling was, "Opening doors has always been an open door to me." But he didn't say this, because he had no sense of humour at all. No perceptible one, anyway, but deep inside himself he cherished a black and destructive absurdism. Strolling towards Charlotte Street during his lunch break and finding himself temporarily out of pocket, rather than prolonging the walk as far as the cash point on Tottenham Court Road, Elmley would often divert his gangling stream of limbs into the hospital and take the option of eating cheaply with Mukti. David Elmley knew all about Shiva Mukti's childhood. They'd attended the same secondary school. The two families had also lived only a few doors apart in Kenton Park Crescent. Not that the older Muktis and Elmleys had much to do with each other, but David and Shiva had formed one of those friendships which, despite being between temperamental opposites, often drag on to middle age and eventually endure for a lifetime. The basis of their friendship was mutual dislike. Had they been capable of acknowledging this, it would have made them a very truthful duo indeed, and perhaps, instead of terminating their association, the revelation might have provoked the kind of honesty and soul-searching that true amity is founded on. But they weren't that honest, and there was much else about them worth reviling. Elmley had the aching parsimony of an only-child mummy's boy who refused to grow up. Now in his early 40s, he still affected a wide-eyed, raring-to-go manner. If anything novel was proposed, Elmley would say, "Oh, I must do that. Get one of those. Go there." But the truth was, he never did anything new at all, and this performance, with its obvious staginess, was the very guarantee of his timorous inflexibility. Mukti, who was also a prodigious example of arrested development, and also an only child, took exactly the opposite approach. Under the cover of a threadbare cloak, cut from "You take me as you find me" cloth, and embroidered with "I am what I am," he was both mercurial and a confirmed neophyte. Mukti made up for his strictured childhood when he reached medical school by becoming a serious carouser and a committed womanizer. He had even married out during his second year, out meaning without the say-so of his parents and the family astrologer, out of caste, out of race, and effectively out of this world. In one fell stroke he had laid waste to thousands of years' Brahminical observance. That the new Mrs. Mukti was pale and blonde was well known to his fellow students, because she was one of the cleaners in their hall of residence, but less perfectly understood was what then happened to her. One week Mukti was to be seen strutting the hallways and corridors of the